Thank you, Christine. I hope everybody can hear me. And I appreciate the opportunity. I guess I'm a little scared because I'm the last person between everybody and a nice cold beer on a Friday night. But again, I appreciate the opportunity to talk about the Healthy Soil for Sustainable Cotton project I've been involved with. It's a partnership between the Soil Health Institute and Wrangler Jeans and the Walmart Foundation. They're the ones that provide the funding. Start off a little bit here. I always like to say if we don't understand how soils are supposed to function, we accept degraded soils as being the norm, really thinking that there's nothing we can do to change those. And what do I mean by that? Well, you think about it. I look back at my soils training back when my ninth edition or eighth edition of the Natures and Property of Soil many eons ago. And we were taught that soil, it's got a physical component, and it's got a chemical component, and it also got a biological aspect to it. But the real emphasis was on physical and the chemical, and we've gained a lot of information related to that over the years, which is a good thing. But the biological, we kind of downplay. And you take a look at these two cotton fields. This happened to happen a couple of years ago. I was out doing some training, got 2-inch rain while we're out there working. What's the difference between these two fields? The difference is understanding soil and how they're supposed to work. The person on the left doesn't really understand that that's not the norm. Although we see thousands and millions of acres that look like that, we see water ponding, we see the crushing that occurs after the sun comes out. Others, two pictures where you can see got a nice cotton field, it's got a cover crop growing, you can see the nice aggregation, root development. Again, it's aspect of how we were taught and how we use that information. And we have a lot, generations of agronomists and conservationists and so forth. That's the perspective that they have towards soil. And that's kind of what we're battling with when we're talking about trying to get the shift to a new paradigm. And the real problem is we've been really successful with agriculture. We've got tremendous crop yields. We constantly have low prices because we do too much. And that's a real battle. But again, thinking about that in its context. I was fortunate enough to be part of the soil health division that Bianca talked about. And when this is the name we chose, or the definition we chose for soil health, primarily because it's a good marketing tool. You think about being able to reach out and speak the lingo and change, talk to farmers in a way they might understand. This definition helps us do that. It's the way you're thinking about the soil as being one that has a continued capacity, talk about sustainability of a soil to function as a vital living ecosystem that sustains plants, animals, and humans. Again, the living concept of it, being able to walk across the field and realize that there's life below your feet. But the other one there is the idea of soil functions. It's really kind of surprising to me as I've taught around the country that how many farmers really don't understand what the soil is supposed to do for them. And we've heard some great presentations during the annual meeting here about soil functions, nutrient cycling, water cycling, the ability for soil to break down, remediate against pollutants, the ability to cross a field. What more important function of soil is there to be able to cross a field? And then the last one that kind of drives all these, and we just starting to incorporate into our presentations, is that soil is a habitat for the soil microbes. And whether farmers understand that or not, that what they're doing drives the microbial communities that provide all these soil functions. And what we're trying to do is get farmers to look at soil in a new perspective. This new thought, this new looking at soils, have brought on some new organizations such as the Soil Health Institute, such as the Soil Health Partnership we just heard a nice presentation on. And I really appreciated Dr. Honeycutt's comments right from the beginning that this is all directed towards the producer and getting them to adopt the change. I think that's really critical on that. But there's another driver in this whole soil health thing, and that's the American consumer. That's being done. We heard yesterday from the Land O'Lakes folks, we heard from the General Mills, and how they're trying to meet consumers' demand that they want to know that their food is being produced in a sustainable way. Well, so is the American consumer who's buying blue jeans. They're wanting to know that their cotton that goes into those jeans is being raised in a sustainable fashion. Wrangler has been on the forefront of this. They have developed this publication a couple years ago. It's called Seeding Soil's Potential. It's a real simple publication, about 25 pages in length, that talks about the soil health principles and activities and those types of things that farmers can do to improve soil health. But in the beginning, this statement is so powerful there from Rowan Atwood, their director of sustainability. Rowan says, Wrangler believes that our supply chain does not begin with fabric or cotton, but rather it begins with our soils and the land itself. So it's taking it down right to where that seed is planted in the spring. And they're not the only company that does that. Here's a list of, there must be 30 or 40 different companies here that are talking the same thing. They have a goal of using sustainably grown cotton 100% by 2020, by 2025. And you can see these are not small companies out there. So how are they going to do this? Well, the cotton industry had a little foresight about 3 or 4 years ago, and they came out with a publication called Pathway to Progress. And within that publication, they identified 8 key indicators, performance indicators they want to see that their cotton producers are doing. They want to see an increase in soil carbon. I thought that was pretty neat, more organic matter. They want to see an increase in land use efficiency, and they want to see a bunch of decreases in greenhouse gas emissions, soil loss, decrease in water use, decrease in energy use. All these things are important to the American consumer, so they're trying to document that their producers are doing that. How are they doing it? Well, there's something called the Cotton Trust Protocol. You can go online. It's a voluntary program. Producers go in and they identify their fields, where they're at in what county and that type of thing. So they do get some basic information, but they answer some pretty simple questions in these 9 different categories related to soil health and crop protection and nutrient management, those types of things. And it's not a real high bar to jump over, but it does get you thinking about sustainability and where they're going with it. And one thing I would say, any producer that would be adopting a soil health management system would blow this thing out of the water. So let's talk about the project and what it's for. This emphasis on sustainability, targeting cotton producers. Wrangler and Walmart came through and provided some funding to do this. And the goal was to quantify and expand and to verify the productivity, environmental benefits of soil management systems used by cotton producers. We're working 3 states last year, Arkansas, Georgia, and North Carolina, and we brought on California, Mississippi, and Texas this year. Here's the key objectives. We want to increase adoption of a management system. That's pretty simple. Going to do that through trainings, workshops, field days, those types of things. Also have identified some farmer mentors and some soil health specialists to provide that hand holding, so to speak. And then we're going to continue to provide advanced training, maybe like a cover crop school or something like that. And then the second part is, how do you quantify that? That's always been a challenge. How do you quantify the production and the environmental benefits of any kind of environmental activity? So we're going to be looking at using the field print calculator, doing some soil health assessments, as has been talked about yesterday afternoon quite a bit, and even some economic analysis. Here's what our farmer mentors look like. And the reason they were picked, they're producers who have been doing a soil health management system long enough to have been successful and have failed in some cases, but have seen some changes within their soil, and they're very willing to share this information. Adam Chappell farms about 8,000 acres in Cotton Plain, Arkansas. Burton Heatwall, about 2,500 to 3,000 acres around Midville, or Millen, Georgia. Sonny Price is our farmer who farms right on the North Carolina, South Carolina line, about 6,500 acres. And Zeb Winslow farms about 800 acres in a place called Scotland Neck. One thing I want to point out here, look at the age of those producers. Sonny, he's an old guy like me, but the rest of them are pretty young. They're in their 40s plus or minus. And I bring that up because that's the future of agriculture. These guys are excited about soil health, and they're willing to share their ideas. What are they talking about? They're innovators. This is Adam standing in. That's wide grow cotton, folks. 72 inches apart. You can drive a pickup down through there. Why is he doing that? He's trying to cut costs. He feels he can maintain yields. But from a soil health perspective, he's maintaining a cover crop, and he's even looking at trying to incorporate interseeding the cover crops that will be living throughout the growing season. Problem Adam ran into is as his soil health improved, he wasn't able to get water through his flood irrigation system to go from one end of the field to the other, just soaking in too quick. So they came up with this innovative idea to create a little channel to help assist in that. Other innovative ideas of pollinator or beneficial insect habitat areas adjacent to the field. And then all of these guys are using cover crops, and we're not talking single species, we're talking 10, 11, and 12 different species. This cover crop picture was planted in June the 14th. I was out there last week. 30 days afterwards, that cover crop is at my waist. This producer is going to be able to add 8 to 10 tons worth of biomass to his system in a time of the year that most wheat fields in the southeast are laying fallow. That's some of the innovation. We also have these soil health specialists that bring just a tremendous amount of experience. Will Mann's got 18 to 20 years where he's at. Peyton Staff is an extension agent in the University of Georgia who talks about cotton. He said you can't talk about cotton unless you include peanuts. Got 2 great people there in Arkansas, Bill Robertson, who's the cotton specialist, and Matt Fryer, who's a soils instructor, but he's also working on a soil health project. They got this great partnership. The Arkansas Soil Health Alliance just involves all the ag agencies in the state. And then Dr. Buzz Clute, who's really been innovative. Go to Facebook and Google Carolina Cover Crop Connection, and you'll see his work that he's been doing. A lot of what do they call it, crowdfunding, where they got donations to do some on-site research plots looking at how much fertilizer they need as the system changes. What are they doing? They're working with our participants to develop and implement a soil health management system, which we kind of define as this idea of a collection of practices and activities that focus on maintaining or enhancing soil health. I like to tease, if you got to use a bulldozer and install it, that's probably not a soil health management practice. But all of the other thing about a system is that addresses all the soil health principles. And by doing that and implementing them at the same time, you create this synergistic effect where 1 and 1 doesn't necessarily make 2 anymore. It makes 3 or 4. So you get these additional benefits as one activity or practice builds on another. And the other thing is these are cropping system specific. I mentioned Peyton. You said you can't talk about cotton unless you talk about peanuts in Georgia. Well, peanuts, last time I saw, you got to dig them. And that's a pretty highly disturbing activity. So what he might be working with them down there is probably a little different than maybe what we might be doing up here in North Carolina or in the corn soybean part of the country, that type of thing. So it's cropping system specific. What have we been doing? We've been having field days, such as the one here in Georgia, where we're comparing, we're looking at 2 different, this is the no-till versus a strip-till cotton plant. I heard mentioned earlier about the rainfall simulator. If you haven't seen that, that's a powerful tool. Most people don't know what happens because they're inside when it's raining. They don't look at it. I really like this one. I got this from Bill Robertson. He buried a pair of cotton breeze in Adams Field about 30 days below that. And what you're seeing here, I hope you can see my marker. That's just the seams. That's the only thing left. When the soil gets biologically active, that's what happens to the cotton or the organic material. And then sometimes you even throw an old man like myself into a soil pit, and instead of talking about A horizons and B horizons, we talk about those hot zones, those biological hot zones in the soil, where the rhizosphere, or that interface between where the surface and the residue is, and those types of things. And farmers appreciate that kind of innovative idea. Another thing is we realize that while we support all the activity of soil sampling, not everybody's going to jump on the bandwagon. You think about sampling soils for nutrients, it's not done on every field. But so what can farmers do? Well, we came up with a simple tool, and I think Bianca kind of hit at this a little bit with NRCS has one where you go out and evaluate soil health conditions on your own, looking at the surface conditions. Is the soil, is it well aggregated? Does it crumble easy? Do you have a lot of residue on the surface? I remember as a young conservationist, I used to hold up a corn stalk and say, it'd be there from 2 or 3 years ago. And I'd say, see how good a job this is doing of soil control and erosion, not realizing that's an indicator that my biology may not be functioning quite like we're supposed to be. And we even throw in a fun one where you even take a whiff of it once in a while to get a nice earthy smell. The soil's supposed to have a good fragrance to it, that good jasmine smell. Another thing we've been doing, we working with 5 to 6 producers, and we had them take the challenge, the Healthy Soils Challenge, working with our soil health specialists to develop systems and to try on their own farms, a field going into cotton and a field going out of cotton, and they develop a cover crop system, talk to them about termination and those types of things, how to plant into high volume residue, which are what some of our speakers earlier talked about it. So we've got about 20 of those folks we're working with in the 3 states. We're also kind of entering the video world where we're talking, we conducted an interview that's Burton, Sonny, and Zeb sat around the barn there and had a coffee and cotton and covers conversation. and they discuss their journey through soil health. And it is a journey, and it's not a destination. And I think that's one thing you get out of listening to this. And what we've been able to do is produce 6 videos. They're going to be available. They're 3 to 4 to 5 minutes in length, covering, the impact of reduced, what benefits they've seen from reduced disturbance and so forth related to soil health. We've also identified, 6 or 7 what we consider key topics that folks need to know a little more about related to soil health, maybe a Soil Health 101 type of series that's available off of the Soil Health Institute's website. Key there is we're talking about linking soil biology to soil health. We introduced the idea of the ecological approach to nutrient and pest management, and also how to manage cover crops and develop a soil health management system. Again, anybody can do these. We've been affected by the COVID just like everybody else, so we haven't been able to do any training, which makes it kind of hard when your project's based on one-on-one contact. So we're going to try a first effort at a virtual field day. We've went out and we developed some videos that are more in that 8 to 10 to 12-minute range. We're going to release these after Labor Day. Just say this is our virtual field day, and you can kind of see some of the topics that we're talking about. Going to be covering how to use soil infiltration rings on the farm, why you would measure soil temperature, how to develop a soil cover crop mix, and those types of things. And then also, we just kind of firmed this up in California. I think it's on the 17th of September. We're going to do more of a virtual live meeting like we're doing right now, and introduce try to bring growers and the marketers and the brands together to discuss soil health, because one of the concerns, and it's a legitimate one, that they have out there is that as different regions of the country respond different to have different soil health systems. And the problem is what works here in the East may not work in the West. And we need to have the brands understand that as they start to encourage and promote soil health adoption out there. And finally, what are we doing to measure it? We're using a tool called the Field Print Calculator, which was something you can go online. It's developed by called the Field to Market folks. Basically, what it does, it looks at 8 different indicators or metrics, if you will, and it also includes irrigation, water use, if your fields include that. But you answer a series of questions that are a lot more detailed than what the Cotton Trust Protocol one is. But it gives a score after you've done that. And I just highlight this because this thick blue line here is our farmer mentor in North Carolina. And the idea here is to get close to the bullseye right there in the middle. So the closer your scores come to that, the more environmental benefits you're providing. So his system was a little high in greenhouse gas because he was using a lot of nitrogen. But when you compare the purple one here, that's what was compared to a typical system that his neighbor might be using. The scores have all been kind of normalized against each other, so it's not necessarily a true score ranking, but it's been a valuable tool, and hopefully we can use that to further develop and answer the benefits that folks are deriving. And again, finally, I want to again thank our funders, and I want to thank our partners, Wrangler and Walmart, for being in there. And also I want to thank the state level partners. Hopefully we can continue and expand into Mississippi and Texas and California. It's kind of hard, but they've been, we are making some progress, and someday we will get to meet again. So with that, Christine, I'll stop and answer any questions if there might be some.